What's up, y'all? Shuffle, and this is a video that is mostly for fun and a little bit of educational purpose, and we're going to talk about the least appreciated or the most underappreciated skill on each hero in DD2 right now. So we're on the patch where Man-at-Arms, Jester, and Vestal are getting changed, but I'm going to focus on Wanderers. And even though 3 characters are getting changed, I'm pretty sure they're close to set in stone at this point. So we'll just treat it like that's how it's gonna be. But anyway, enjoy the content, hit the like button. Got thoughts, throw them in the comments. I'll support the channel, join the community, check the box. Great stuff. And drop into a stream. Start with Peta Celsius. And for her, there's a couple moves that can seem underappreciated, and we have to be careful too, because there's a difference between being like underappreciated because it's surprisingly decent but just not really talked about, and like the contrarian hipster thing where it's like, yeah, this is trash. No, it's actually good, Shuff. You just don't get it. It's the best move. It does 0 to 1 damage and instantly kills that hero for using it. No, not. It's okay. Not every move's good. We're talking about the ones that are underappreciated. So, for Plague Doctor, so we live in a world where Alchemist was busted, people meme with Physician, and then we have Surgeon, but I just want to say, this is kind of related to Surgeon. And I think the underappreciated move here is Incision. So even though Surgeon does give it, a massive bonus, this is like your main damage move right now on Physician. It's still solid on Wanderer, and Surgeon, obviously, it's really strong, so it's a very humble attack, but the damage is good, and the crit's good, so you get a nice 4-point bleed when mastered, 15 crit, 4 to 7 damage. Not bad. She can throw it from rank 3, which is where she's really, or relatively safe anyway. Obviously, she wants to be further back, but if you're in 3, it works. So I think Incision's pretty cool. Not talked about enough. For Grave Robber, I think I said this before, everything's Wanderer, but yeah. With Grave Robber, there's some choices. A couple that came up were like Poison Dart, because people just kind of sleep on how strong this can be. But it's a little bit worse now that Old Deadeye's gone. But I think the thing that's pretty underappreciated is actually Pick to the Face. So this is a move you start with. It's not a move that really fits into any of the combination of paths. I mean, it's okay on Wanderer, obviously, because there's more flexibility. But with Pick, the damage is pretty good. 5 to 9, 20 crit, and if they're comboed, you have plus 50 crits. So with items or trinkets, well, that's an item, or quirks or something like that, this can get up to like 75, 80 crit with a combo. Pretty good use of a combo, and it ignores block. The remove all block on crit doesn't really matter too much, but what ends up happening is this will go straight through block and then take off a token. So it's reliable damage. Got the same kind of targeting here. I promise they're not all melee moves, but yeah. So Pick is like one of the first things to go when you get everything unlocked, and it's kind of sad because it's a pretty good move. Then we have Highwayman. It's a simple one, and I think it's highway robbery. I know, crazy. Some people out there, Shuff, it's already good. I use it all the time. I hear you. Not everyone knows though, and it doesn't matter if you're not Yellow Hand. This is just nice. The -5 crit doesn't really matter in most cases, but it's still good to have. But it's just the fact that this gets rid of tokens that don't have an inverse, also known as riposte and crit. There's no token you throw on them that cancels them out. And you can say, oh, blind cancels them, and it's like, no, I'm talking about when you put vulnerable, it gets rid of block, like it just removes it, and there's no inverse to those two. So having something that gets rid of those like sticky tokens that are really hard to get rid of is very welcome. Plus, when it's mastered, Highwayman gets that crit, not bad. And even though riposte is really hard to get rid of and so is crit on the enemy, guess what? He can use them if it's mastered. Really nice indeed. Double Cross was a close second. Double Cross is surprisingly solid, very defense oriented, but there's not as much in the kit that kind of synergizes with that. Unless you want to go like, you know, upgraded Jewelist and stuff and give him like dodge and block, but it's another conversation. Man-at-Arms. Going through quite a bit of changes right now. And the first, I mean, I got two. The first is Hold the Line. I know people use this, but people don't really understand how busted this move is, especially like even upgraded. That's really good. It goes from like no days or whatever, no semblance of a stun into stunning on combo. But what makes this so ridiculous is there are a few fights where immobilizing yourself can counter certain mechanics. Librarian with Categorize, tons of knockbacks or, you know, party-wide shuffles and stuff. And Hold the Line, if you can kind of predict when that's coming, you're safe. You know, so if you want to keep them in rank 2 and push them into rank 1, that's fine. You know, usually your front line can be okay with that. But what's really good is that it's a forward 3 move, so it doesn't matter where the hell he ends up in the party. He can get hit by something and go from like 1 to 4, and then just hold the line next turn, and he's back up there. The other frontline centric characters don't have something this good. Leper doesn't have a movement skill at all. Helen has Breakthrough, but that gives her a debuff. She has toe-to-toe, but that locks her. So if she's not in the exact spot she needs, she has to like wait an extra turn. Hold the Line is ridiculously good. But I think the most underappreciated move is Strategic Withdrawal. Because when you look at this, right, this isn't like, oh, I combo and I move and I do, you know, mediocre damage. And that's already nice in itself, but then you hit this upgrade and look at this crap, dude. It gets so loaded. So he still goes back, but he gets speed. He heals for a third of his life. He gets block plus. He needs to be on death's door. But you know, that's pretty much it. If something goes astray, then you have this almost sepsis level move to come back with. The reason it's also super nutty, and I'm really surprised this kind of escaped the Man-at-Arms changes, at least so far, is that when you get the speed token and you combo the target, you can freaking crush next turn and heal half of your HP and have a block plus after that. This has a cooldown of 1. And if you spend that turn crushing, then this is up next turn. So you just crush, boom, you know, over and over. So there was a point in time where Man-at-Arms could solo bosses pretty much even without tablet, just by doing that. Like those 2 moves alone. It's crazy. But again, no one really uses it, so that's why no one notices. Helen. This is a bit of a tough one because her kit's kind of polarizing. There's like a couple really good moves, there's a couple just like really bad moves. And I think one that's slept on is If It Bleeds. The damage here, this is Ravager, that's why it's got the weird debuff, but the damage and stuff doesn't go up. The bleed doubles though. It's more just she can do it from like rank 2 and even 3. And this is really good for paths like Carcass that don't do a lot of direct damage outside of some goofy stuff like Selfish Motivation. I think it's the one it's called, yeah, not Idle Thought. But they have stuff like that. And obviously Iron Swan, Howling In, all that's fantastic. But what makes If It Bleeds really, really good is that it hits rank 3. So back rank damage, aka reach, is really important in this game. Surprising amount of characters can hit 4, you know, with various stuff. You have like Iron Swan, range skills, all this and that. And for a melee character to be able to hit rank 3 isn't the easiest thing. You know, a lot of them go 1 to 2 when they swing, and Helen can go into 3. with this. So rank 3 is kind of a blind spot in a lot of comps. So being able to poke it, you know, for some good damage, if you don't have disruption or pulling or all that, then it's surprisingly solid. Very short exposition there. Jester? Everyone's just like on the finale train. Everyone's talking about Encore. This isn't Wanderer, but you get what I'm saying. Echoing March can do some crazy things, and half the time it does nothing. But I think the one that people sleep on is Fade to Black. This character does not deserve this move. This move is such a freaking sleeper, man. Like, the damage is pretty solid, the crit's solid. The reach is really good. And the fact is, I think it's the only blind that the player can throw at an enemy in the game that doesn't have a cooldown. So like Blinding Gas, Smoke Screen, whatever else I'm not thinking of right now, those have cooldowns. Fade to Black is just blind each turn. That's really good for mitigation, and the damage is pretty solid. Plus you combo them when it's mastered. Like, this move does so much, and it just cruises under the radar. If you can set up like a backline dance team like Jester Crusader, so you actually no, it wouldn't be Crusader, would it? I don't know, someone like Sharpshot Highwayman can push himself back, just as an example, but they're characters that can make this work. And so being able to, he can even do it himself with Wit and Fade together over and over, but like, this move is so powerful, and it's like the more you can throw it out, the better. Who's next? Leper. I was laughing at the name. Easy pick on this, okay? We all know Intimidate's good. We all know that, you know, Chop is a meme, Solemnity's good, Withstand's pretty solid. Break's bad, just get that out there. But the thing that's super good is Bash. This is such an unassuming move, but it's really good for kind of the same reason as Hold the Line, where he immobilizes himself. That already deals with some tough fights where movement's a big factor. Shambler, Harvest Child, right? There's a lot of things that this just instantly stops. And in the case of something like Harvest Child, you keep the boss out of the front too if you hit the meat that's in front of it, so it's not sitting there cleaving your team to death. Like, this move has so many good applications, and since it dazes them, you can bash them next turn, and they're just, you know, permanently locked wherever the hell they're at. If for some reason it combos. Just combos on upgrade. The other thing that's really good that I don't think people do enough with this is they don't use this to get rid of blind. So if you have like one blind token and you don't want to use reflection, just bash. You know, you might get something out of it, or you miss and you can get rid of the blind anyway because it doesn't reblind him. Very good. Let's see. Occultist. It's between two. The first is Malediction, I think. And it's weird to say that. It blows my mind that I have to say this. Like, people don't understand how fast this can kill a boss. Like, any multi-action enemy, this just annihilates. And like I said, people don't talk about it. I don't understand. Like, there are mountain bosses that get multiple turns, there are lair bosses that get multiple turns, and this just pumps out damage. But maybe you don't want to go that route. I guess we'll talk about Chaotic Offering. A lot of people are afraid of all the negatives, but usually they're more annoying than anything, but there's no, like, the game, like the turn or the fight ending, breaking, whatever negatives that come out of this aren't too common. I'm not talking about either of those. I'm talking about Vuln Hex. So Vuln Hex is surprisingly super, super good. It's so unassuming. This is Ritualist. Let's go to Wonder. Sorry. Yeah. So ignores dodge, gives 2 Vuln. Dodge is like one of the most, it probably is the most common defense token on the enemy, right? You got spiders, you got stuff in the sluice, you got sprawl dudes, fanatics. There's a lot of dodge out there. There used to be more, but that's just at base, and you can use it from anywhere. Only got a 1 turn cooldown. But then you master it, and it gets rid of everything. Doesn't get rid of guard, but block, gone. Dodge, gone. And since it removes them first, that means that if this hits them, the vulnerable will get to apply. You know, so if it sticks, it's not canceling block. The block's already gone. And so you put 2 vuln. Even unmastered, it's 2 vuln. Like, this is such a strong move. Like, Occultist is moderately fast. He might go before your damage units, especially if they're slower. And he just clears the way. It's like, alright, goodbye defenses. And then your friend's like, hell yeah, and they just, you know, they lunge because you're running Grave Robber. So it's really, really good. Slept on, definitely. Underappreciated. Next one for Bonnie. This was an easy pick for me, and that was Control Burn. Pretty much the same reason I was talking about Malediction. Like, if there's an enemy that has multiple actions, you know, again, mountain bosses, lair bosses, you just sit this under them, and every time they take an action, they have a chance to get burned, so it just keeps ramping up. And this can put out a lot of damage on a single unit surprisingly quickly. The cooldown's pretty long though, so you can't stack 2 of them or whatever, but like really, the only thing holding it back is you can't use it in 4. If you could use it in 4, where a lot of people like to dump her and just spam Firefly, it'd be way better. The subsequent burn hits also don't get her scaling like Res Pierce, I think, so that's also another negative. I think we're about halfway through. Next, Flag Gellant, and it comes down to 2. It's not faster. This immediately leaves the moment you get Acid Rain unlocked. I feel so bad for it, but it's Undying. Like, everyone talks about Deathless, and Deathless is super good. Undying's pretty freaking good too, especially unmastered. You only take 10% damage compared to 20, which isn't a huge deal, but, you know, it might matter. But the fact is that it's flat healing and not percentage. This is really good for lower HP units. Plus, when it's mastered, it gives 5 regen, and that's a very important breakpoint, because a lot of the high damage over times outside of like the super big ones like Exemplar cap out at like 4. So General with Waking Dead, 4 bleed. Guess what? You outpace that. So someone gets ganked with a crit bleed, they're not going to die if they have this on it. The other one, though, that's worth talking about, these are kind of tied, is Necrosis. The only reason I don't want to mention this as, like, the amazing thing that it is, even though it is amazing, is because you kind of have to have Blight synergy. You have to have, like, one other character, ideally, that can Blight, so you're kind of locked into Plague Doctor or Grave Robber. But if you run, like, this is a team I've ran a lot, where you have Man-at-Arms, Flagellants, Grave Robber, and PD. So you have, obviously, you know, the best tank in the game, Stress Healer, doing all the stuff, and then you have 2 other characters that help set up Blight, and then you just Necrosis on turn 2. And then you can Necrosis again. It doesn't remove any of the damage over time, it doesn't hurt him, and it heals instead. On a character where everything pretty much hurts him for using it, it's nice to have something that can heal him. And this can be really strong. Scales pretty well, so like a strength token's already 6 to 12 on the entire enemy team. Plus Blight, so if you actually get something to Death's Door, it just dies. Vestal, this one is a pretty big point of contention because, you know, on the channel she's been talked about and really put under the microscope. I feel like I know this character very well because I used her a lot and I did my Grand Slam on Stygian with her. That was old Stygian, which is a huge pain in the ass, and she performed there while still having some obvious shortcomings. But with Vestal, like, anytime you ask someone what's underrated with this character, you're gonna get like 14 different answers. She has 11 skills, they'll pick 12, right? That's ignoring the paths here. So there's a lot of stuff you can talk about, but honestly, with the buffs, they've gotten a bit better. I think the one that's really kind of ignored to an extent is Sanctuary. At base, you know, 1 cooldown, double guard, double block is pretty solid. The upgrade is really good. So you get to stress heal a target and protect them. Usually if someone's getting stressed out, they're probably getting, you know, beat up pretty bad. And guess what? You can protect them from further beatings. Furthermore, Vestal has 41 base HP. She is thick, and so she can take some hits, especially with block. The other thing too is that in a lot of comps, she's in like rank 3 or 4, which don't usually get hit as much, especially 4. 3 a little bit more, but 4 definitely. And so she's kind of safe. She just sits back there, soaks a couple hits. She's got heals, you know, and it's just good. It's a really, really good move. It's hard to pick a different one now. Maybe Ministrations. Like, there are people that think this move's great, and they're correct. But I don't know how many people really understand how good this move is, but maybe they do. That's why I didn't pick it. Then we have Jewelist. And this was kind of a tough one, because she's got a lot of, you know, just a lot of stuff going on. Depending on the path, whatever, there's just a lot of ways to take this character. And much like Skyrim, where you just start out as a two-hand paladin, you go into like stealth archer mid-game, everything kind of becomes meditation spam. But if you're not looking to do that, Touche is surprisingly freaking good. So you get your stance on turn 1, and it's like a higher tempo type of stance. So like you go turn 1, you actually do some damage, and then you get stance. The movement effects on Wander, I don't like as much, but like when you go to an antagonist, I know I was saying no pass, but it's still good on Wanderer just because it hits kind of freaking hard, right? Like 7 to 9 is no slouch. Then you go to antagonist and you don't move. Instead, you just throw out debuff tokens with good reach and decent damage. So like pretty much on every path, this thing can be pretty good. Actually, it's the same on 3 out of 4. That's interesting. I never noticed. All right. Yeah, really good move. If I had to pick a second one, I'd say Feint. Just, you know, a bunch of riposte and flip stance. Pretty good. Then we have, I think Ronaldo's last, right? Yeah. Okay. Rainald. All right, so I'm not going to throw out some kind of hot take and say like Radiance. Holy Lance might be a bit slept on. Holy Lance is pretty good. For some reason, it combos when mastered. You know, solid damage, burn, combo. Pretty freaking good. Gets him out of the back if he needs to get out of there. Or enables dance teams because he's so slow. Bulwark's another one. I don't think people understand how like ridiculously powerful and kind of OP this move is. You get 3 taunt, which is the dumbest broken token in the game. And you get a ton of regen on top. That's pretty nice. But the thing that stands out to me as the least appreciated is Stunning Blow. No mastery. If there's a combo, you can stun them. He's slow AF, so someone else can set him up reliably in most cases. But also, I like this mastered version. Still does some okay damage, but getting rid of strength and crit, especially crit, as I said before with like other characters where crit has no inverse, so it's like a really hard to get rid of token. Being able to take that off on demand with no combo can actually save lives. It's pretty crazy. So I think that one's really good. I think that's it for the video. Hopefully short and sweet, but let me know what you're thinking down below. What other underappreciated moves exist? Because even looking at these, I had a couple that I wanted to talk about for most characters. So definitely some fun stuff, especially if you don't have to like invest too heavy into the team to make it work. Like you don't have to, you know, invest super heavy to make Hold the Line work. It's just good. For example, Highway Robbery is really good, but it's also kind of niche. If they're not making tokens, it's a dead button, for example. So cool stuff. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.